Supervisor Miller, please.
May I have a point of personal privilege?
Of course.
After we got done discussing all the roads and the discussion that went back and forth, it was simply to have a discussion, maybe doing something different. But I do want to thank Mr. Huckleberry and his staff for the great job. That analysis was a lot of work, and it was very well done and very thorough. So I want to thank you, and I think most of my constituents will be very pleased to know that we're going to spend $36 million on roads this year. So thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, the people who did the work is Michelle Campaign and Nicole Fife over here. They come into my office about every other day with another spreadsheet, so finally got it.
I don't know. I don't know, Mr. Huckleberry. I think you ought to buy a lottery ticket on the way home, because this might be the first time Allie's thanked you. You might be a trend or something.
It's his birthday. How old is he now?
Okay, end of that discussion, and we're going to move to item 27, real property, unfinished business, condemnation, resolution 2019-75. Chair will move the item. Motion and a second to approve item 27. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, is this on?
Yeah, Supervisor Bronson, please.
I'm going to vote in favor of it, but I think the gentleman who spoke in calls in public made some very cogent points, and I would hope that they get serious consideration by our Department of Transportation.
I'd concur. There were some good points made in the item, and it's a tragic mistake that happened a long time ago, but this is about fixing it and moving forward in the best kind of way to provide for folks in that area of my district. I truly believe that. So, are there any objections to the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I also do this kind of with a little hesitation because of the point that came out about that doing this condemnation and not moving the road is not going to fix the problem. So there is a concern there, but I will defer to your decision.
There's numerous issues that are faced there on that part of it, and fixing that road is more than just this item that's before us today. I do understand that, and I believe staff does as well. I know Mr. Huckleberry does as well. Any other comments from anybody? If not, are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're on to item 18, allocation of unreserved fund balance.
Mr. Chairman, for purposes of discussion, I'll move the item.
Second, we have a motion and a second to approve item 18, item 1, 2, and 3. Okay, discussion. Supervisor Miller?
Mr. Chairman, in the facility renewal fund, we're going to get and I know there's a contract for that. Are we going to get the windows caulked in 130 West Congress?
Mr. Chairman and members of the board and Supervisor Miller, not only we get the windows caulked, you probably get them replaced and the siding fixed better to the side of the building, so none of them will fall off.
Thank you.
And no tiles at the, what was the?
And all the bricks on 32 North Stone will not fall to the sidewalk.
Good.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Christie, please.
I do have a question regarding, again, I raised it earlier in the meeting. Have we not allocated in the upcoming budget facility renewal in the adopted budget? And if so, what was that amount?
Mr. Huckleberry?
Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Christie, we can get you that amount and we can get you every line item that it was allocated to, so it's already spoken for, so to speak. And to undo it, we have to unprogram some of the improvements that probably are already in process. This allocation will be a new allocation earmarked specifically for the facade modifications and safety improvements to these downtown buildings, with the priority being basically this building and 32 North Stone.
Perhaps Lisa Josker might have some, do we know what that amount was?
Ms. Joster?
Chairman Elias and members of the board, it was 6.8 million. Hang on a second, I've got the list here.
So 6.8 million, you're saying?
Yes, it was 6.8 million, and there was a series of 15 projects that were put on the list.
That was probably the initial one, 6.8. There's got to be more allocated as.
No.
No,
we-
that was
No,
it.
That was it. That
That's
was
for-
the adopted budget.
Correct, correct.
So I guess another question I have is, if 6.8 was good enough for the adopted budget, how all of a sudden do we need the $15 million?
Mr.
Mr. Hubbard, please.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman and Supervisor Christie. We were in the process, if you recall, of doing a whole series of research projects and investigations on these buildings this last year with a contractor. We did some work on the roof. We hung some people off the side, took out some windows, sprayed it for a couple of days with water, tracked all the water. And so we now have a good handle about where we need to make these improvements. So that's why, obviously, it's now, if you have the money, let's fix the buildings.
The other thing I would add to that is that this is not new. We've been working on this building, I think, almost the entire time that I've worked in it, which has been 20 years. And it has been a significant challenge to rid of asbestos. And the windows have continued to deteriorate and continue to cause problems, as Supervisor Miller has alluded to. We've had bees invading us because of these windows
Yes.
in 150. We've had water problems significantly in all sides of the buildings, but primarily on the south side and the west side of the building, which take the vast majority of the sun and the weather. And so it has been very, very difficult. And 32 North Stone has continued to deteriorate as well over time. And I don't think it was a surprise, but nobody likes the idea of blue bricks falling down upon your head. Well, I don't know. Mr. Voorhees seems to think it might be okay, but I don't really think it probably is. My point is not to make fun, but to say this is an ongoing process that we have been involved in, trying to do it in a manner that's judicious and works for us in terms of making the improvements that are needed as we go along, rather than moving everybody out, finding an alternative place, and ultimately stripping this building down into almost nothing, which is what we've had to do floor by floor.
Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is
Please.
because there seems to have been a discussion of a process of addressing those very issues you brought up over a period of time, and it seemed like it was a satisfactory period of time and a satisfactory amount of money that was going to be continually allocated over that period of time. Suddenly, we have this unreserved fund balance, and there's $15 million that can be moved up for this, but if we didn't have that reserve fund, it appeared that everything was going to be proceeding on the repair end and maintenance end of these buildings just fine. So I'm going to ask it to move a substitute motion for the following: that out of the $26 million already committed in the budget for this upcoming year's road repair and maintenance plan, I would like to take the $10 million that's already been suggested here in number one, which brings that up to 36, and then the balance of the $15 million that equals a total of $50 million in road repair be substituted out of that $15 million for facility renewal. The reason I come up with 50 is because my understanding has always been, for some time now, that $50 million at this juncture, due to the labor shortage and construction company shortages, is the maximum amount that the county can program efficiently and effectively for road repair. So my substitute motion would be to take the amount of money out of the facility renewal fund, add it to what's already been budgeted and the $10 million, so it comes out to $50 million for local road repair, and whatever's left over can go into number 2, which is the facility renewal fund, and leave the Parks and Recreation Fund alone. Don't all speak at once.
Motion dies for lack of a second. Okay, we're back to the original motion and we're into discussion still. Any other comments from board members, or are we ready to vote? Roll call, please.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie?
Yes?
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We're on to item 19.
Mr. Chairman.
Acquisition of a Tucson Airport Authority property to provide a munitions storage area for the Arizona Air National Guard and safety buffer for expanded.
Mr. Chairman, for second. For purposes of
Mr.
discussion.
Chairman, I think I need to recuse myself here.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you,
Yeah.
Supervisor.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and leave, and then we'll call you back as soon as we finish. I didn't finish reading it, but everybody knows what the item is on 19. What's the pleasure of the board?
We already moved and
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry. I was trying to speak as she was trying to speak. So,
second.
okay, we have a motion and a second for approval. Any discussion? If not, roll call.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie?
Yes?
Supervisor Miller has recused herself? Sorry. Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Supervisor Miller, if you could please return to the desk. Thank you. We're on to item 20, Pascua Yaqui Tribe State Shared Revenue Program, Resolution 2019-79.
Move the item.
Second. Motion and a second to approve item 20 and Resolution 2019-79. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Christie.
Looking in the background, it appears that the Pima County is writing this request for the shared revenue program, and that it's going to increase preschool, and it's going to be, my memory serves me correctly, administrated through the United Way.
That's correct, sir.
Why can't the United Way directly write the request for the grant? And why does it have to go through Pima County to address preschool?
Mr. Huckleberry?
Chairman, members of the board, all of the grants that go to the Indian nations have to go through the board.
That is statutory? And the United Way has no ability to request this on its own. It has to go through.
Okay. Let's do another roll call vote.
Supervisor Bronson?
Aye.
Supervisor Christie?
Yes?
Supervisor Miller?
Yes.
Supervisor Valadez?
Aye.
Chairman Elias?
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. We're on to Clerk of the Board, item 21, Flowing Wells Irrigation District Annual Election Cancellation, Abra Valley Irrigation and Drainage District Annual Election Cancellation, items 21 and 22. Chair will move those items.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Objections. Hearing none. Motion carries. We're on to petition for relief of taxes.
Move the item.
Second. Motion and a second. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Supervisor Miller.
there is a process for the new owner of a property if they buy the property after the date. And it says, I've got the statute here, it's in Title 42. If the change of ownership occurs after December 15th of the valuation year, the new owner may appeal to tax court, not to the Board of Supervisors, according to this statute.
Council, we still have that authority, don't we?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, the statute that they're applying under, yes, is a separate process that they can come to the board, and if they can demonstrate that they're entitled to the exemption for that tax year, then the board can grant the relief provided for in that statute, which can be either forgiving or refunding taxes.
So they do not have to, as directed in the statute, they don't have to go to tax court. They can just come.
There are
to-
several options available to them. I
Okay.
think that's the response, really, Ally. I mean Supervisor Miller.
That's correct.
Well, everybody's right once in their lifetime, I guess, right? What are you smiling about over there, staff? I saw that. Okay. Any objections?
I object.
One objection noted for Supervisor Miller. We're on to item 24, petitions for redemption of property tax exemption waiver. Did I read that right? Petitions for redemption of property tax exemption waiver.
I'll move the item with the note that taxes due for the first half of 2019 are not eligible for refund or abatement.
Thank you, Supervisor. So we have a motion and a second.
No second.
I'm seconding it. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I guess I just forgot that.
Okay.
Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. We're on to development services, items 25 and 26, final plats with assurances. Chair will move both these items.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to item 28, which is an abandonment by vacation, resolution 2019-80.
I'll move the item.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to franchises, licenses, and hearing, permit hearings. Items 30 and 31 are liquor licenses. Our chair will move those items and close public hearings.
Second.
We should note that there's a clerk's note on item 31. Series 6 is only permitted with a Series 12 restaurant applicant must maintain a Series 12 license at this location to remain in compliance. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. We're on to transportation, items 32 through 35. These are traffic ordinances and traffic resolutions and the establishment of Valencia Road.
Mr. Chairman, these are hearings. If there's no one in the audience that wishes to address us in opposition, I'll move items 32 through 35, close the hearings, and approve ordinance 2019-25, resolution 2019-81, resolution 2019-82, and resolution 2019-83.
Thank you, Supervisor. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. We're on to our addendum now, item 3, Board of Supervisors. This item is about the District 1 property tax error for Foothills School District. Supervisor Miller.
Mr. Chairman, the reason I put this on is Mr. Huckleberry, we got a memorandum about 4 o'clock yesterday that pretty much answers the majority of the questions I had on this. I just understand that this happened, an error with the school district superintendent's office that got overlooked. Just want to be sure that we have a corrective action in place from
Yes.
our perspective in the event that another rate or a valuation or something is off, that is in place and that this,
Doesn't happen again.
we can, prevent it from happening again. I mean, errors happen, everybody makes them. And then you talked about the different options available, and the one question I had is, you said we couldn't go in and reassess after we had adopted the final levy. Do statutes prohibit us from going in and adjusting anyone's tax bill? Is that a specific?
Counsel, please.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, again, there's not necessarily a specific statute that says you can't do that, but the statutory timeframes are all very clearly set out. And as we pointed out, there is a statutory mechanism to correct property tax errors, and that can include a correction in an illegal tax rate. But that's not, first of all, the board doesn't initiate that process, but I think more importantly, if that process is used, you can't raise a person's taxes for that year. So that process wouldn't fix this error. It wouldn't allow that additional revenue to be collected in this tax year. So I guess basically the answer is the existing statutory mechanism has very specific deadlines, and there's no mechanism in the statutes to do the revision or the new tax bills for in this year. And I know it would have caused a lot of practical problems as well as probably legal problems down the road.
And I think that in your memorandum, Mr. Huckleberry, you answered all the questions I think that the lady had sent in regarding the folks in the Catalina Foothills School District. One of the ones that I thought of is if somebody sells a property, like in the next few months, and doesn't disclose that you're going to have an additional tax, is that going to create a problem? Probably not. Because if you buy it, you have to disclose anything that you know what's going on. So I guess that was the only other thing that I had. So, okay. Well, that's the only reason I put it on there, is I wanted to make sure that we had something to be able to deliver to the constituents that have contacted my office. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Moving on, we're on to contracts and awards. This is items 4, 5, and 6. Does anybody have a problem if I move those 3 together at this point?
Second.
Thank you. A motion and a second to approve items 4, 5, and 6 on the addendum for November 5th. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, if nobody has any objections, I will move the remainder of the addendum agenda items 7 through 13 unless somebody wishes to divide the question.
I'm fine. Second. Motion and second to approve the remainder of the addendum for November 5th, 2019. Discussion, objections, hearing none, motion carries. This meeting stands adjourned, hearing no objections.